Hello. So today I'm going to be talking about characters and writing. When I say characters, I'm going to show you a little bit of some animation. And writing is quite an interesting one when you're doing a game because writing is not just dialogue or story, it's the kind of way that scenes play out. You kind of write in three separate threads on that. And one of the things that I wanted to show was a puzzle that I've got, and it's quite a long one that takes you throughout the whole game. And how you get to it is via the garden, where we've got some other characters and we've got some other stuff going on that you can do in the garden. It's kind of the central point in the game where you can reach other locations. So we're going to go to the office, and you realise that you can't get in there. The door is locked, and the keys are on the inside of the door, so it's locked from the inside. So, how do you get in? Now, the obvious thing to do that you would think, and that there would be a clue to, is maybe you can push something through the keyhole and push the keys out. It's kind of like a classic trope that you've probably seen before. And what I wanted to do was okay, I'm going to reward the player for knowing a trope, and they're going to do the thing. Find something that they can push through, maybe slide something underneath the door for the keys to land on. Great, you solve the puzzle. But I wanted to subvert it, which is something that I always like to do, to subvert things, but sparingly. So in this case, you do solve the puzzle by doing the obvious thing, which is poking something through, keys land on something that you slid under the door, then you can pull them out. But something else happens, and that gives me an opportunity to create a joke. So we've already got this note, which is a mysterious note that we handed at the start of the game, which kind of sets off the quest. So that is the piece of paper that we can slide under the doormat. So we've got an animation there of him pushing the thing under the doormat. So we're good to go. And then we've got a straightened piece of wire that we find elsewhere in the facility. So it's quite a long-winded quest to then realize, oh, I need to come back here and then I can push this thing through the door. And the guy says, it's working, I'm a genius, the keys have dropped to the doormat, brilliant. Reaches down, pulls the thing through, but obviously the keys don't fit under the door. So what do you do? So as a player, you're thinking, oh, great, I've just gone, potentially 20 minutes out of my way to try and find this thing in a hidden basement room somewhere, to come all the way back upstairs to come here and it's not worked. That would be so frustrating as a player. So to kind of subvert that, it gives me an opportunity to show the players, not the players, but the character's personality. So his personality is a bit boisterous, he's a bit reckless. He's just going to smash his way through the door anyway. That is not something that you as a player, you may think, well, it's made of glass, why don't you just smash it? But you're not given the tools. It's not an immersive sim. You're not given the tools to do absolutely everything that you can think of, if only. But yeah, it gave me the opportunity to just do a funny thing where you've solved it, but actually it didn't work. But actually, maybe we can just make it that it works anyway. So yeah, it's given an opportunity for humor, or just a silly little thing that kind of rewards the player. And okay, we better understand our guy. He's really reckless and he's not really bothered that he's smashing up the place. So now you're in the office, and then there's a bunch of puzzles that play out in here as well. You can get some information out of the computer. So I've got a little flashing light there. But you'll have been kind of looking through these windows multiple times, thinking, how the hell do I get into that room? Well, that is how you do it. So there's a nice kind of little payoff there. There's another one that I wanted to show you, which is a totally different location. So I think I've shown before the dining room, but throughout the solution of getting out of the breakfast kind of scenario that you end up in, you have to go in the pantry. So if I just teleport us to the pantry, hopefully it will show us how this works. So I'd written a joke for this initially, and the joke was around this box at the top that you can't reach. So there's all these different boxes, and they do different things, like they've got rats hidden in them and stuff like that. But the idea is that you're looking for a couple of different items. But you click on the box, and it play out a joke. The first joke that I wrote. Now, this is the kind of difference between it's adult humor, but what adult humor is acceptable? It's lewdness versus kind of swearing. So you can create an adult game without lewd humor or crude humor. You can swear because adults swear, people swear in intense situations or as a kind of an intensifier to a statement. So my initial joke was going to be that our chap here says, oh, there's a box up there on the high shelf. I wonder what's in it. Oh, maybe it's top shelf stuff. Maybe it's a big box of porn. And then there was going to be a kind of silly back and forth where he agonizes over the fact that there might be a big box of porn and he's too embarrassed to go and ask one of the robots to get it down for him, and there's a bit of kind of like introspective stuff where he wonders aloud what kind of porn might be in there, that sort of thing. And I wrote that and actually put it in the game and had it playing, and I was never really satisfied with it because I just thought it's not actually that funny. It's not funny, and it's a lewd thing in a game where there's otherwise nothing else is like that. Because that's not really my sense of humor. It's not. I think most people are it's a bit cringy. So I thought, well, I need to write something else. And I kind of struggled with, it's got to be a joke. What can that joke be? So instead, I ended up with a kind of insight into how he's really thinking. And there's a bit of a kind of tragic thing here. So he says, there's a box up there, it must be top shelf stuff on the inspect, but then when you try and interact with it, he says can't reach. What's in the box? Reference to Seven. There's loads of references in this. It'll have to remain a mystery forever. I choose to imagine it's full of, and initially that said porn, but now it says rocket launchers, so I'm just invoking some sort of game tropes in there that maybe this will be the solution to the whole problem of the robots, or remote control for those bloody robots. Maybe I could drive them all in a conga line into the fucking sea. And I thought, that's a little bit much. So our guy says, that was a bit strong, wasn't it? Sorry. So he apologizes to the player, which is another like weird fourth wall breaking thing. Now, like, it's not funny, which is fine, but he says something really intensely and swears, where otherwise in most of the rest of the game that's not really present. He's basically sarcastic, and there's a couple of like low grade swears rather than a high grade one that he's just used there. Why is that? Well, I just wanted to give, so I'm the kind of person that will click on everything in a game because I want to read everything and see everything. A little bit of a reward for people who are like me and click on everything, to show what he's really thinking. And the secret is that he actually hates, well, we know that he hates the robots, but he feels more strongly than you would imagine he would, because he's just been a bit sarcastic and a bit laid back. Why does he feel so strongly about the robots? Why does he want to drive them all into the fucking sea? There must be something going on there. So this gives that sense of the unreliable narrator, where he presents as he's a bit senile, he doesn't really know who he is or where he is or what's going on. But is that true? Because he's just expressed this really, really strong kind of thought of, I really hate these robots, more so than you would if you just met them, because this is apparently his first day here. So it was a good learning experience for me, because my initial thing of, oh, I'm just going to write a dumb joke, fine, but actually I used it as an opportunity to do something a little bit again, two examples of me trying to do something subversive. There are things, the rest of the game, the majority of the game must be tropes that are played straight. Otherwise, if it's all subversive, then it's just going to be an absolute nightmare and you're not going to understand what's going on. I don't want to try and be overtly clever when actually you need to do normal tropes to establish the baseline, and then you can throw in these kind of, out there things, just so, I don't know, it just gives it a little bit more depth, I think is the reason why I did all this stuff. So the next thing that I wanted to show was a couple of character animations that I've had to do for that particular scene. And I'd realized that the interaction animations that I had for our guy were very sort of generic, and didn't work in certain circumstances. So I've got a standing up interaction here, which is, I'm just going to play it. He just kind of slaps his hands out. So for that particular puzzle in the garden where he smashes the window and he has to reach down, or when he pushes the paper underneath the door, he reaches down and does something, I had to have one, and also him in the wheelchair doing it. So this is what I kind of came up with. So he reaches down, I've got a different head that kind of pops in, and then he just comes back up, and that's really handy for either picking something up or interacting with something on the floor. So how this all works, and I've touched on this before, but I just wanted to show this as an example. So this is the nulls from paths. So the path is just this line here that's the arm, and then these points. So it's just 3 points on this line. These points are then parented to these nulls, and these nulls I can kind of move around. And this is how the animation works. So this wrist here, so you can see this position. So this is After Effects, by the way. I am assuming that you've seen the previous videos, so we're just kind of going along from what I've previously talked about. So these nulls here, I'm just driving the position with keyframes. So the position for this wrist, you can see it follows this path, and because it's low res, there's only a few frames here, so it's not very smooth. It's quite jagged animation, but you can see that this wrist is kind of going down, and then all I had to do was follow with the elbow. So I've just chosen the same points. So this initial, the wrist lifts, and then the wrist goes down. The elbow is kind of following, because you can really easily stretch this out. So if I grab that wrist keyframe, I can just stretch this out however I want. But I wanted to make it like it's a human arm. So I'm just very slightly moving the position of the elbow. So you can see that has got like a little bit of a lift. The shoulder lifts with it. So the shoulder keyframe is this, so it just kind of moves up a little bit. Then it kind of goes down. Then the body has got a puppet mesh deform on it. So there's 2 pins. There's one at the crotch and one at the very top where his neck would be. And I'm basically grabbing the top of the body, if I just isolate that so you can see it, and squeezing it down, and then back up again to return to the original position. So that's just a puppet deform, and that's just After Effects built-in effect that you can do. So yeah, keyframe that, following the same points that these points all move down. The hand is parented to the wrist as well, so when I move the wrist, the hand goes with it. So yeah, these shoulders are following sort of roughly the deformation of the body, and then you can see I basically just take that initial lift and reverse it here. So there's a slow down and then a fast pull up, and then it's just played in reverse, and then that's where we end up. So the head, the only additional thing that I had to do for this animation was draw another head. So I've got this head low, which I've got as it just pops in at a certain point in the animation that felt right, where the guy would be, okay, he's lifting his hand off the arm and then he goes down, and at that point you would look down at the thing that you're looking at, and I literally have just got it that this layer becomes visible on that frame. The head is actually, if I hide this, the looking up head, and this looks very bizarre, is still there. I've just got this sat on top of it, so it just kind of pops in at that point when he's looking down, and then pops back up when he's at a kind of reasonable position that he would be looking back up. The other thing that I did was I just wanted to have the other arm very slightly bend, as though he's kind of taking the weight on that arm and pushing down. So I just moved the shoulder and the elbow just to give it a little bit of a, okay, he's having to kind of lean into that a little bit as he's moving down. Legs don't move. I didn't see any kind of reason to do that. So yeah, that's it. It's just like little animation. It's just a bunch of keyframes, and I had to redraw the head. So that's that one. And in this process, I learned something new. So there was a pretty cool thing that I've never really looked at before, where at the point of an animation, you can you can set a kind of reference. So pick up floor animation, go into power anim, and there's a little reference here at the point that he seems to be starting to interact with something, and that pickup little event. So animation events, everything I've done so far has not used animation events. So I had to learn how to do this, because what I wanted to happen was at the point that you push the paper under the door, it triggers the start of that, but it's when his hand is actually down there, rather than I couldn't get it to trigger like either at the start or the end of that animation because it'd look daft. So we're in the office, and I will show you the script for that particular animation of interacting with the keys. So we've got the keys here, and we're using our inventory. Right, so if the item is the note, then play this animation, which is the one that I've just shown you in After Effects, the lean down, and the point, the pickup point, which is this point here, is when the paper animation would play, which is the paper being pushed out. And then there's another one where he pulls the paper back in, and you probably also saw in there, by the way, that this end paper true. So that is something that's sat in the room. So once the paper becomes true, only then will we be allowed to push the wire through. If we don't do that, then obviously the keys would just fall to the doormat. I mean, obviously the joke is that he smashes the door anyway, but we need to make it seem as though you can catch it on the paper and pull it out the door. So if we try to use the wire and we'd not push the paper through, then he gives you a little clue that maybe I should push something under the door. And this says, okay, you're using the wire and the paper is true, then play all of this stuff. So this is how this works. So he plays his interact one, so he's kind of lent to the side and he interacts with the keys, which is pushing the wire through. Yep, this is working. Then the keys are a prop and they move to a certain point, and this is just the speed and whether you've got an ease on there, but I just wanted like a straight drop, bang. Yes, I'm a genius. Then he plays the pickup floor, and this is then looking for that animation trigger of that pickup point. Then the prop plays out in the background the paper pull animation, which is literally just 4 frames of the paper going but and then gone. Then as that happens, because it's a background animation, the keys are also moving to another point, which you can probably see. That's all these points. So that's the key drop, that's the key drag. So they hit that point, and then the prop, the paper prop, I've just got that to disappear. Then he plays out the joke of Christ, they don't fit under the door, I'm an idiot. Got him kind of like looking around suspiciously. I think I may do a different animation here because I've got him literally spinning on the spot, and I don't like that. I think I might have an animation where he's facing forward, his body's facing forward, but his head's turning. I think that kind of will work a little bit better. So I'll draw that out. So yeah, plays through that animation, then he says, all right, and then he plays this animation. So I've got another one here where he is smashing the hammer, and it's kind of similar. So it's a project, and we find, you can see all these many different animations that I've got, and this is the same sort of thing. So using these drivers to move the wrists and the shoulders and the elbows, I've got that looking down animation again. He is hitting it with the hammer, and that animation I've kind of put a reference point at what I thought was the impact point, which was kind of around here, this frame or this frame. Yeah, so it looks for, within that hammer smash animation, the smash reference that I've put in, then the door sprite, it kind of plays this window smashing thing. So there's basically, the door has got a sprite cut out of it that's hollow. Then there's the first sprite of the smashing animation fills in that gap, and then it plays out the animation of the glass breaking. Yeah, then he says, if it ain't stupid, but it works. Plays the pickup animation, it waits for that pickup point, the keys then disappear, and it plays through the normal interact one. The door plays an animation of it opening. He enables a walking area. So I had it that you couldn't come in the room, but it's just basically 2 walking areas that are switching. So that's the first one, so you can walk back and forth and look through the window. The second one is that is now enabled, that a guy can come in and you can look around the room. So it switches the walkable area. He walks to a point in the foreground here, and there's another region sat on top of that when he comes in to this space, it darkens the sprite. So it just looks like he's walking into a darkened room. He plays the interact animation. This shadow region disappears, and at the same time, this background that's dark disappears and a lighter version appears. So all of that code is just to play out that one joke. So it's a lot of work, for a silly idea, but I think that it's that stuff that I love in games where at the minute I'm playing Broken Sword 5, and there's a stupid joke where you pick up a cockroach and you have it in your pocket in a little matchbox for ages, and every single character that you speak to, you can show them the cockroach, and he says, "Hey, I've got something to show you," and they all react to it in different ways. In it's literally every single character that you speak to has got an interaction for you showing them this stupid bloody cockroach, and it gets more and more kind of silly as time goes on. I love stuff like that because there's an immense amount of effort on the part of the games designers to program all of that stuff in for this item, as every single character has got to have an interaction with it. So this is the amount of effort that I had to go to just do this silly little glass smash thing, but I just think it'll be immensely rewarding for players to kind of have this silly thing play out. The work continues. I don't know what the next topic will be, but I just thought I'd show some kind of silly things that I'm working on, how I'm building them, some thoughts on writing. When is it appropriate to use this style of humor versus this style of humor? When do you actually drop the humor and go serious? What in using that as a tool, what does that tell you about the world, or what the character's thinking, or what the character knows that you don't know? It's all that kind of stuff. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.